Good morning and welcome to Listen In Show, Community, Conversations, Connection. I'm Pam Holland and you're listening to Tacoma Radio, WOWD 94.3 FM. Today, I'm thrilled to be here with Jeanine Cogan, who is a career coach, a mom, and active here in our community. Say hi to the folks, Jeanine.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Pam, for inviting me to be here. I really look forward to our conversation together.
Yeah. Jeanine really, I send questions in advance, and Jeanine wrote a lot and did a lot of thinking about this, and she's already come up with our gentle challenge, too, so she's been an excellent guest already. So, Jeanine, tell the folks out there, what does listening in mean to you?
It's such a great question. To me, listening in means getting quiet enough to hear my own wisdom. So what is true for me? And basically, when I block out the noise from the culture, family, society, all of the shoulds and have-tos, what we think is necessary in order for us to be successful or have happiness in life, to sort of put that all aside, and what I'm left with is what is true for me. And so that's what I think of as listening in, like what's real and what's authentic.
Great.
Yeah.
And Janine's going to share with us a little bit more later about how she does that, how she gets to that place. But first I wanted to get a little bit of background and find out, as a child, were you taught to listen in, or did you have to figure that out on your own?
Oh, yeah. I was, I want to say my first response to that question was no, not at all. But then I actually realized there was a way in which I was taught through modeling. But let me first tell you about my family culture. We were much more, the expectation was that we help each other out, and we're always sort of in tune with each other and support one another. And those are all good values, but there was really a bit of unhealthiness to it as well. It was a bit of a codependency where, there was a bit of, I would say, an unwritten expectation that we make sure my mom's happy. Mm-hmm. I don't think this is uncommon in families. Kids are very attuned to their parents, and early on it became my job, or I took it on, to keep peace in the family and to make sure my mom was happy. Now, that has been quite a journey for me along the way, because what I've learned is it's not possible. You can't make anyone else happy. Mm-hmm. So it was quite a burden to put on, especially on a child. So that, I don't think I at all had a sense of what was true for me inside, because I was always trying to read others and see what was important to them and what did they need, and then respond accordingly.
And you were the youngest, right? I
was the youngest,
all
yeah.
Right.
So there's something about that. When you're the youngest, sometimes there's not a lot of room for you. Or, I had a pretty big family. By big, I mean big personality. Everyone in my family had big personalities, and I call it kind of a juicy family. So I think at times I felt a little overwhelmed by my big family.
But you found your spot as the peacemaker.
I found my role.
Yeah, great. And then you mentioned that you learned something about listening in by observing your father.
Yeah. So I would say my dad, he was had a really solid presence and had a solid sense of himself. So by that I mean he kind of came across in his actions, without a bunch of bravado, as really knowing what was right, what was wrong, what was good, and what he could do and should do and all that. So he didn't get caught up in shoulds and coulds. He just, so let me just give you a story, and that captures this really well. My dad returned from his second tour in Vietnam, And he and his buddy were riding a bus from the south back to Ohio, where they both lived. And so the bus stopped at a rest stop, and he and his buddy went to the counter to get a snack in the snack shop. And the waitress kept passing them by, back and forth, waiting on everyone else and not waiting on them. So my dad finally got her attention, said, "Hey, what's up? Are you going to wait on us?" And she said, "Oh, we don't serve niggers here." And he grabbed her by the collar, and he looked her in the eye, and he said, "Listen here, if he is good enough to fight in your war, then he's good enough to be served, to eat your food." And just kind of threw her back. And the bus driver caught wind of this. He quickly came and sort of got both of them out of there quickly. It was the South. And he said, "Look, this is not okay behavior. You're going to get yourself in some serious hot water here." So, but every time my dad told that story, he didn't tell it to us as if, he was explaining any shameful behavior. He told us the story with quite a bit of pride. Mm-hmm. And that was not lost on me. Mm-hmm. So I think my dad had lots of stories like that. And he would never say, "So, Jeanine, the moral of the story is," but I got it that, it's okay to say what you think is true. And he was in the military, and he was a bit of a hothead, what we would consider a hothead, because he told commanders off, people higher than him. He ended up losing rank one time over something like that. But for him, it was important to say what's true for you, and to not just go along to get along. So I did see that behavior in my dad, and I'd say it became part of who I am today, as we'll probably talk about a little bit more later. Yeah.
Great. And you also mentioned that there were sort of your different parts of your journey that gave you occasion to learn to listen in new and different ways. So tell us about that.
Okay. Well, I would say one of the key sort of periods in my life where I really was able to begin listening in came from suffering. So I was growing up to be a teenager. I got caught up in the whole negative body image. I got caught up in negative body image. And when I say caught up, I think that girls learn how to hate our bodies on our way to womanhood. It's unfortunate, but the way culture, all the messages we get from culture about how we should look and how we should focus on how we look, and we need to be thin, and we need to be this and that and the other. And so for me, I took it all in, and that became really important to me. So in college, I developed a full-blown eating disorder, and it was one of those experiences where I had enough sort of wisdom about it that I knew, look, Jeanine, this is killing you, and this you don't need to do this. There's got to be a way out. So I was able to find a way out, and it was the story's kind of interesting, where I went to school at University of Vermont, and I went down to North Beach, which was a little beach on the lake, and I was by myself. I had my little towel there. I was just hanging out, and they had this book rack. It was this old ancient book rack, and you could just go grab a book for free if you wanted, and it was like tattered. Things had been weather worn, basically. And I go down the book rack, and there's maybe 6 books. And I'm looking, and I see one, and the author was Jeanine Roth. So she had the same first name as me. She spelled it differently. And so I was drawn just to her name. And I pick up the book, and it was called Breaking Free. And it was Breaking Free from Compulsive Eating. And so I picked up the book, and I just sort of opened it in the middle. And I read a story about a woman who was bulimic, and she felt shame, and she, didn't want to be doing this anymore. And I'm reading this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. So that was the first book I ended up reading. And then I read all these other feminist books. And basically what I learned from reading these books, like one was called Fat is a Feminist Issue, is that I learned to feel this way about my body and to hate it and to want to be different, to be on this endless quest towards thinness or towards perfection, which is not even achievable, right? So if I learn this, well, I can unlearn it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I ended up unlearning it through following, the guidance and advice of these different authors. And so I would say my recovery from bulimia ended up being the birth of me as a feminist. Mm-hmm. And so that was the beginning. When I say me as a feminist, it was the beginning of like removing one of the first layers that I would say was keeping me from my authentic self. Mm-hmm. So I would say that was my first big event or first major empowerment. Mm-hmm. And then the second, a second one was when I was in graduate school, and then I ended up coming out as a lesbian. Mm-hmm. And that I remember being a really interesting experience, because for a while, I was still dating men, and yet I was this feminist, and I was feeling really passionate about the importance of women's rights, and so I voiced that a lot, and there was a good amount of turbulence, I would say, when I was dating. So I remember thinking to myself, wow, is there a way to, I was starting to open up to the possibility that there might be an alternative to heterosexuality. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was another layer of listening in, where instead of doing what was expected of me and required of me, to just start paying attention. Mm-hmm. So that was a big moment. And then I would say the third big moment for me in listening in was when I found meditation. Mm-hmm. So I was in my early 30s, and I had been drawn to people who meditated. I just had the sense that would be good for me, and I was actually also on a spiritual journey. I wanted to figure out, I just had the sense that was kind of missing. And I was out in California at the time, so of course the first thing I got involved in was a goddess group. That's so California, and it seemed to really, so woman-centered, and I was like, yeah, this is groovy, but it was more just groovy. It really wasn't feeding my spirit or soul, or it wasn't, there was something I was still searching for, right? Mm-hmm. So I moved here to DC, and it was actually the first friend I made. Her name's Meredith Smith. I met her in a coffee shop, and we got to talking, and she said, oh, I'm a meditator. You want me to teach you? And so she meditated in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, so she taught me. Mm-hmm. And so I've come into meditation through the Buddhist lineage. Uh-huh. And when I sat to meditate, that to me was just such a coming home. I went, oh, this is it. Mm-hmm. This is what I've been looking for all along. And I was searching outside of myself to find it, but it was inside of me. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
And, yeah. So as a consequence of finding the meditation and doing that and sitting and just being with myself. So when I say sitting, what that means is, following the breath, and it's mindful, it's conscious breathing. Breathing in, I feel this in-breath. Breathing out, I feel this out-breath. And just staying with the breath. And that's sort of the basic premises, and there can be a whole lot more to it. It's not complicated, but it's, and then you sit with your feelings, you sit with your physical sensations, etc. But doing that really gave me this space of knowing what I was thinking or feeling on any given day. Because when I sit that way, that's when whatever's there emerges. When you meditate in this way I just described, whatever there is there in you comes up. So if I sit quietly, if I feel agitation, then I'm going to notice agitation. If I feel joy, I'll notice joy. If I have discursive thoughts, or if I'm feeling worried or thinking worried thoughts, then I'll notice that. So it's just this brilliant technique that's been around for 2,500 years. That's just designed basically for us to listen in. So as a result of doing that practice, I tended to not have this sort of edginess that always was in me before then.
And then you have grown in your love of meditation to teaching others to meditate.
Yes.
Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been so good for me. I want everyone to have some, right?
Right. And we can share that on the website at listeninshow.org. Can share Jeanine's meditation groups. And so you've talked a little bit about this already, about the tools, meditation as a primary tool. But you talked particularly about the pause. Could you say a little bit more about that and maybe take us through it?
Sure. So the pause is something that I think Tara Brock, she's a meditation teacher over in River Road. The DC area we are so lucky because we have just dozens and dozens of excellent meditation teachers. And Tara Brock is one of them. She's written some wonderful books. So the pause is basically where you stop what you're doing and you breathe in and out 3 times. So it would look like this. I've done this like at where I'm walking I want to walk across the street and I have a red light so I can't walk yet, and I'll just stop, close my eyes, and breathe 3 times. Breathe in, know you're breathing in, breathing out, know you're breathing out, and do that 3 times. And then afterwards you just move on with your day, or move on with what you were doing. But it's really helpful to do it in general so you can practice it. And then you can really utilize it when there's some challenging situation. Right. So I can do that if I'm noticing I'm starting to get uptight or worked up with my daughter. I'll just pause and breathe 3 times. It really can shift the energy. And notice how doable it is, right?
We're just talking 3 breaths.
Yeah, we're just 3 breaths. I'm not saying do it for 30 minutes. I mean, you're welcome to do conscious breathing or meditation for 30 minutes, but just 3 breaths and doing that, 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another time that my family does it is at dinner. So I don't call it that, but we've just incorporated it into our dinner ritual. So we sit down, there's 3 of us, so we hold hands, and I'll say, why don't we each take 3 breaths and just become present in this room, and feel the hands of the people we're holding. And then we'll just take those 3 breaths. And I know for me, when I do that, it's almost like, especially if I'm cooking and getting things on the table, there's a bit of this energy that feels, I'm acting it out. You all can't see it, but it's up here. It feels like it's up high in the air, like heady. You're in your head. Right. And the breaths, once I take those 3 breaths, it's as if my mind comes and lands. It lands in my body, and I can feel my feet on the floor. So there's a groundedness that results from doing that. And then I can be much more present with my other 2, with the people I'm having dinner with. Right.
And the one thing that I thought was a really good tip was you were saying that particularly right now with so much going on politically that you were sometimes having difficulty coming to your meditation practice or being able to be still. And so you have added it to something that you're already doing. So tell the folks about that.
Yeah, so one of the questions you asked me is, what sometimes stands in my way to listen in. And I think there's just so much happening in the world, and even before sort of the most recent results of the election, to me, our culture feels so ramped up. Everything's fast and loud, and if there were,
shocking,
and shocking. There's a degree of like a brazenness or a little bit base. Like, I don't know. There's not as much respect or kindness towards one another, at least in the media and what we are often exposed to. So I can get caught up in that. I mean, we all do. We feel the energy of that. So when I'm feeling the energy of that, what would most shift that energy? Meditation, for me to do my meditation practice. And yet that's the moment when I avoid it. And that's sort of a classic human tendency where there's a push-pull between something that's kind of dragging us down and not good for us, and the thing that would be beneficial for us and will kind of water our wholesome seeds. And there can be this, oh yeah, this is good for me, and then we avoid it. I don't know, it's the rebellion in us or something. So that's certainly in me, and I've been feeling it. I've been struggling a little bit more, or I want to say it's been a bit more salient for me since in the last few months because of everything that's happening politically. So one of the things that can help me is to couple my meditation with something positive or within something that's happening every day. So for me right now, when I put my daughter to bed, afterwards I can sit and I'm sitting in her room. I actually have a meditation cushion in there, and she knows I'm doing it, and she loves it because she feels it's soothing that while she's falling asleep, I'm sitting there meditating with her. So I'm getting, she's getting this positive association with meditation. Because, it's sort of classic. The teacher, the preacher's daughter ends up sort of rejecting. Right. And I'm like, oh, I hope my daughter doesn't end up rejecting meditation and Zen Buddhism because her mom was, But she's getting a positive association with it. So she has come and sat with me. She's done it on her own. She's like, Mom, can I sit with you? So I'm not sure if that's an intrinsic desire or if she's just trying to put off going to bed.
But either way, it's okay.
Either way, it's all good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so but the idea of if you want to create a practice that supports you in listening in or supports you in any way, you might look at your day and think, what am I doing already? Yeah. That I could just begin to do this with. Yeah. And begin doing it for 5 minutes or whatever. Exactly. Yeah. But then it's, you've already got a routine and you're just adding it to your routine. I think that's an excellent way to create new productive habits. And Jeanine has a gentle challenge for us.
I do. And before I tell you the gentle challenge, I just want to put it in a bit of context. I really think that this program that you've created, Pam, is so key. I think historically, where we are right now in our time in history, we need it more than anything. Because there's so much coming at us. Every time we listen to anything, whether it be the TV, the radio, reading the newspaper, whatever, there's other ideas, other people's ideas filling our consciousness, right? And so turning all that off is, I would say, a necessity. So listening in isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. We need this at this period of history. If all of us did that, imagine, right? Imagine what might be possible. Imagine what could happen. So then the gentle challenge is, so what I'm asking all of you listeners, if you want to take on this gentle challenge, what I'm asking you to do is turn it off every day for an hour. Now, what is it? Whatever it is to you. So for me, it could be the radio, my iPhone, turning my iPhone off, turning the computer off. Whatever it is for you, that's kind of a screen, or it's some sort of media that's filling you with other people's ideas and beliefs and opinions, to turn that off. So that for an hour a day, you can just have you'll be with your own thoughts. I'm not saying you have to, meditate for an hour and sit in silence, although that would be fabulous. But just turning it off.
To be with your own, with yourself.
Yeah.
That could be on a walk.
Yeah.
That could be in the bathtub.
Yeah.
That could be swimming.
Yeah.
It could be just sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could be cooking.
Yeah.
Just as long as you're not taking outside input.
Right. Right.
And the world will go on, folks. The world will go on without you for an hour. It truly will.
It will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wonderful gentle challenge, and I will also put that on the website at listeninshow.org, and you'll be able to listen to this podcast and previous shows at the website as well. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Listen In Show here at Tacoma Radio, WOWD LP 94.3 FM. And remember to do less, be more, and listen in. Here at WOWD, we have an amazing variety of music and programming here each and every day. Today at 10, we have Borderlines with Bobby. And Thursday mornings at this hour, you can enjoy Spoilers Not Included with Mike DeSalvo and Jeremy Jacoby. On this show, Mike and Jeremy share their favorite movies and chat about what's in theaters, on demand, and in your newsfeed. And every other Friday morning, you have an opportunity to slow down the pace and ease into Friday with Ballads in the Morning. Traditional European, African American, and British story songs tell tales of heroes, love, murder, labor, little birds, wee penknives, beds long and narrow, and driving steel. And you really won't want to miss Forbidden Alliance from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Sundays, where Weasel and Robbie White play lots of great music and interview local musicians and figures from the community. And remember that it takes a village to keep this awesome programming coming your way. As a non-commercial radio station, Tacoma Radio relies on your support to pay for rent, equipment, engineering, audio production training, and other operational costs. You can donate at tacomaradio.org by clicking on Support on the main menu. If you'd like to volunteer or be a programmer, click on the Join Us menu option and let us know how you can contribute to making our community radio station vibrant, inclusive, and commercial free.